냠제 점보도 님이죠. 너무 많은 점보는 게 바크르 다른 감산도 줄물도 돈바 뒤지 잔나 샴즈로 완법지 바테네 존든 데기 탐제던 담빈 코르 탐제던 담비 션주 생활라 갑사르와 리기버도 대정 소바용도 비 지거 메발라 따청 이치버 지시 라노니 흑섬대양 존든 데기 샹츠 생활대 더랍 갑사르와 리기버 대정 소방아용 더브르 츠마와라 따청 이치버 지지 기시가 되네 탐제던 담비 샹츠 생활대 더 소지 샹츠 생활 진보 셴빈 등도 지네 탈모저대 존든데라 Ndırkıcı soru yapacağından de ki tondu şato soru devroşa tondu şato soru devjan şabep kapsar var dağçığı içi bir görücü lanisi yan tamcıdan bir şancı sen ve soğuk jondan de landırkıcı kapsor ndırkıcı soru dopçondan de ki tondu şato soru devroşa devroşa bir şato soru devjan şabep kapsar var dağçığı içi bir görücü lanısımdı Lanıksımda yan tamcadan dambe janjib sanhwa soğudip jomdan de landırkı jek soru do jomdan de gitonda da şadı soru dero şaba şadı soru devjan şaba evgab zarva lavdıkça hiç çevirip gevo denip jomdan de gip janjib sanhwa de da langsım divardı surapta bam keni janjib sanhwa de da lavgab zarva rigiva da di yirna tangin zanjir to gebandır taban yonu jir rigiva Tăgăl hadang madang lama yendam chibin jikten di na jondun de shikya to ba shaki kim nem ngumbrab shong te chong kere ngaya jib sha shang jur nyang bu mcho tam bara de ro shong ne ta do do lana me ba yang do bur zo bur shang chip tam ngumbr zo bur sang de so nyam ta ter ter shi mo kye rigi ve te dang ngap karwa sha chak chuk tong mang bo ne lana me ba yang do bur shang chip tam ngumbr zo bur sang de so rigi ve ta gandar tar te khwer nam la la jim jong ala jikten ji kam Trang me bab xewa chag chug jar tong chag ngab chir sa ngab chi si kam gi rdarab charab tagle ra rdarab charab jig kyer te shar jib shok zan jig ten gi kam trang me bab xewa chag chug jar tong chag ngab chi bu konan de ne jar chag da charab ji de xewa la de mat dir nam chang di jig ten gi kam te dag tam chi ji si kam nam zapra xie ne si kam jir da charab jir dar te 탐치들 남정도 더 저비 서기 샤르조서 저나 리기반도 저냠도 셈 지텐지 감대도 라라지기 삼바가마 뽑바가마 장와가마 뽑브라니 사마티르키 집갑사네 장주선화 전부 샴바도 탐치던 담비 장주선화 증디 존든데 란더키 지역소르도 존든데 지텐지 감대도나 장맘치 밥장도 맘치 바셈기 살레 더버런데 데 존던한데 냥도다랑 상제 탐지기 냥 법의 시집 삼바감 법바감 장화감 더버런만이소 존던데 언nen더 더서 실물도 비 살라네 비상주선과 남기 삼비 쇼여다양 만저데 존던데 지텐지 감대도 잠더 양 차맘치 발러서 데르키지 소라당 존던데 비상주선과 상화 전보대더라 Ndırkıcıp kapsarır to rikdiva tağı keda mubrashago keki konda chibrashago rikdiva jiktenji kam chirni pate tağle mate tağ kandar darab charab te tağ jagba tağ rikdiva kang tağı ta mavjagban jiktenji kam shiva chakchuk jar tongchak te tağ tamchit nardır charab yo pa te tağ na rikdiva tağ lana me payang tağ bir zobab shanchir ngombir zobar sanji biv kara shiva chakchuk jar tongchak chirni Terni to me to rigiva taga kan san chada ngenji tenji kam mamje pa tan ji tenji kam janu shia chak tong chaga sem chenar namla chu tam ba ti var to rigiva taga nge devjang shaba marmen za la soba dan devjang shaba jap chum ba yang to bur zoba san je kan taga yongsu ju bi devjang shaba jap chum ba yang to bur zoba san je Hernam yongsam nyanga lenda prasha yushir rigiva taga nge talam kebe chu tambam ngumbr driba te taga chir to rigiva yang jijin rigiva yang te vjana shirban semchana gongshang labar namgi gongbo dang tsundi jirin balak zine 대덕당 대덕덕 망조장 대덕당 대덕덕 용섬 령랜데 버죠 주지 남장 Namba mambo te tang te tabar semcher nam yongsa tsambram zato rikiwa te tang la te vishnak shagba muba tatit ba semchen ji giwi tsawa chungwa nyewi nyumwa maa nalandar kada ta gerlong taga nga no zhun te ngumbar shungwa tang gerlong taga nga blana me payang takbar zogbar shangchit ngumbar zogbar san gene rangbur malo na ji song rikiwa te tang la te vishnak shagba ngumbar zobra san gene yen rang mod ngam ngumbar zobra san gene rambo malo no ji song de semjer nam la yongser member sha ta zper shebi to makto bar chuji nam jang de mafshe to rikiva de de chuji nam jang de tamji jang lana tamji jang de jang sha ba semjer nam la der bir she yu shir do song so rikiva de de jang sha ba semjer nam la der shebi Gang song ba de la yang mu ba gang rong a jan la yang mu ba de la yang mu jiang rong jan la yang mu jiang rong de de jiang shi be gang a che xia be chu ji nam zhang de de tam zhen ne den ba de jiang shi be song ba de de la de jiang shi be jiang de jiang shi ba zhen de ma wa me do ti ji jiang na de jiang shi ba Kang samba kia me pa dang, chiwa me pa dang, chimpuwa me pa dang, zhongwa me pa dang, kura me pa dang, yongsam nyang, lindawa me pa dang, shungwa me pa dang, ma shungwa me pa dang, yupa ma yin pa dang, me pa ma yin pa dang, tevzhin da tama ma yin pa dang, zhanda ma yin pa dang, ma nurwa tevzhin yin, ma yin pa dang, ma nurwa tevzhin yin. Ma yin pa yang, tak pa jirta, zhanda, zi xiang jirtar shibi sozu kiyo nam nim, tongwa, tevzhin shigbe, kang sam da zi pa nang, ma yin no, tevzhin shigba nang, nindalam ngumbar. Chu dang dan de nira mam nga wi chu jian no de la de jiang sha be gang ji song ba de de tam ji jiang den de zhen me do yang sem jim shu ba ta de ba dang san ba ta de ba dang de xi nan ba de ba shu ba nam ji ge wi za ki bi shi de chu ji nam zhang mang bo me be nam ba mang bo xia do ri ji we de jiang sha be za ba gang yan ba de ne de jiang sha be za ba guo yin rang bo这年ngumbar zobra san ki de devjang shag be cei chat na hu de me do devjang shag ba yong sam nyang mandar de tag de jigmo jiang de ji wang ge yong sam nyang len de ba yang ton do ri ji wa gang de nga ta ta yang ngong ji shan ju san hui shu ba yong zu zo bi shi bi ce 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 de yang ma shen de ri ji ha de nge da dong yang gara xia chak chuk jia dong zhig de nin ge rui ji ce ce de yang zang ren ge ru ri ji wa de nge der de yong sam nyang len man da mo de yong sam nyang da ba ma 대지 지진아 리기와 더응에 남정도 선진 남용들 members 위시르데 nga 닝을 레만다 와라 하정 인랑던 지유장 인덤 동나요 sem장 기위자 마시바도 소놈담 자라 고르부르기와 고르부르기와 감바당 동바당 스타 몽bun지비 케바 남라 대정 서바 지소 냠데 리버른즘 비인데 시 잔던 여전 예브르카 비인데 시 머치데 대정 서바 더정 니와 ji kangsam nem jong wi shir de sun ji mer sun jang de jang shaba kumben de chi me ki berin yero nyam be ri ki ba de ti shir na de jang shaba tablam ke be gerlong de jang shaba dam jong an shin de ga wo ji zi de ke de song so de ji shir jen an de de sim jen de de ka ra shi a chok chok Ujian dong mangbo de jang shaba tong ren jira yang men jira yang zhe de de ri ki de de yu shir na ngi de de la yang mu ber shi de gerlong de jang shaba nam nam jong an ni ber ka wo ji me be de de la de jang shaba jong arab de ni ber ka wer ri so ji ngom ser de ki ber jira nyang jin de shi ki ber ge ro de jang shaba mam tong na yang de jang shaba ta wi ku ber ge ro de de jang shaba la mu ba yi de shi de ge Tsawa de de yin rang bo don dang pan ba dang de ren ji ri don de re ne de jang sha ba yong sam nyang len ma da mo ji sem chen nam lan de ri gon ge yong sam nyang len da ro song ri ji wa gang dang de ke de song ba de ne de jang sha bi chu ji nam jang de ne de jang sha bi zhen de ma ba do ri ji wa da hui na ji wer man ba na tam che rab de ji wer she ke ba Ksara rig zhong wa shin de xiong wa ga ji ge yo la ji wa de de la ya wu mang bu che gam ni she gam sim che gam jip che gam ngap che gam Gia tamba tong yo per nyer la mamba de de lo shi de song de ve de de tam chen shi de gen tong sama da de gen tong ne de de nam yi de dang da de 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 ngер ji chore de de nyu mo xiang dong de sa lan zhe do la de ne de de pa mamba lo shi ne gong de ve de de la Gigdikam datikam di dingir ji nyambar te kajig na ndishi lokbar jedo kajig na ndishi sam lo ndishi malor te te tak tamchir dingir wa te tak jang nyam takba padim thongnim ngumbar gar te Telander ke jib gar sa to yab de jang no pa me mamngar te logbrop shun tam dagchak linjik brop shi pi tug yig tig kam da tig amdan tig dale yong so wa yab ki dagchak la trok zar dog so jir me ba dan tenet man ba ti wa te dag la yong ding mer ki nyam ban thong te ne nyom won de ji dong de salan de dong thong dirman chimbo ka dog dan dan ban ro dan ban ba di ne dop ta te vete da thong da ji ne der ke ji chö ji man chimbo de ka dog dan ba zhi dan ba ro dan ban don thong ji dan ri ji we de da la mam zong bon don thong na nir da yik dik kam da dik le thar te de jang na me per yoro ji me yoro ji me na te ne man de da ka da da si ma to man de si ma lo ba de da man ka dog zhe nom rom nyong ne nir dan thong wa da de tham chit ne tham chit ji tham chit da thar de yoro de ne na tham chit le tham chit ji tham chit da thar wan yer to Diva kantang dashi lokbar jirwa deda kayang padim ngumbro todo de ndarkachi yaba dejang no pa mamgawa lokbar shon tam dagchag sok sorwa ji tsik derkachi mebada. Man jimba de mantong o di jibshir jin andar tar de dedag tig da shiba lokbar jirwa dir man dedag kadog nyang mando mando da chayang mando pa royang mando do de ni kivir man ba di no nyam do sam de dagchag wanda dag yikdik kam dadik kan dashi lokbar jirwa man dan tong do marong wa ngala nam ngumbro 또 다적 원데 다라 탈람 기비르만다 로도 냠네 테네만 바티 베테 다라 탈람 기비르만다 또 벤더까지 리기베다가 강 나너 계상 코덕 뜨게 난 치위디 녀라니 비 베티남 김영은 녀는 마시지 뭐대와 마시지 만 진본도 좀 받대도 건도나 만던 통식이 지메 받아 베테들 탈람기 비테르기 지고네 이르잔다 송테시르네 우덕 쇼 버테 나테들레 투버시 받아 데덕 디체나 신덤 녀는 제데 신더 메능도 버지르데 덕적 파 덕적 파 공부 기파 지스 신영세 버직 베테야 셰베 디입시르나 다 덕적 군메 버지르도 냐모 데네 데덕 덕님 군메 버 통화 녀 dagnyar sked me param thong ne shirjam nyan she de zerver ke te te tok shirjam nyan she be zerva ti nda shi lo ban da shi ma lo bar ke de man kang da ka to dang zhi dang ro dang dan ba de ka to dang zhi dang ro dang dan ba shi ne de dang de di che de dang thong so den thong ne na le thar ke to de ne man ba te ta ba de dang na super rigne lar dang ne tan ne riki ba dang do je nyam do sem man tablam ke ba de dang lala tag tir zindar mawa ji ziram xor bab chundan de ten malagso devrag shaba ten malagso kapsara riki devjin de ngayam karashya chakchu jar ton jame ba khod me ba ne blana me ba to bor zobar shan chudon ngumar zobar san gimo ngir kavr kavs tablam ke bindir tabat simchir na dirur shay yushir de tan de ne ter ngala zindar mabran gerwa kayam me do de ne chundan de tonji na band gebr ton chang di tsig jaba do kapsar doy
Now we will begin teaching the Lotus Sutra. We are now teaching chapter 16, the chapter on the lifespan of the Tathagata. First, let me briefly share a story with you. In the records of the Dharma flower, it says there was a merchant who with other merchants went to the ocean to seek treasures. This was very long time ago in the time of Kashyapa Tathagata. Those merchants arrived at a seashore which was like a dock or resting place nowadays. At that time they heard the sound of striking the ganta from a nearby monastery. When the Sangha gathers together, we blow conch shells and strike the ganta specially. This merchant leader was a person with good karmic roots. He thought, when hearing the sound of the ganta, the Sangha would be gathering there to teach the Dharma. He wanted to bring some merchants together to pay homage, but no one was willing to go. Apart from the merchant leader himself, no one else was willing to go. So he went by himself, and when he went alone, they were teaching the Lotus Sutra in the monastery. Moreover, they also taught what we are about to teach next, the chapter on the lifespan of the Tathagata. He listened to this entire chapter in full during a single teaching session. He completed listening to the whole session in that one sitting. After finishing listening, he returned, and then when they boarded the ship and sailed back, they encountered rough ocean waves and all the other merchants drowned. Only that merchant leader did not die. Later, after returning safely to shore, one day he had a dream, and in this dream it was revealed that the main reason he did not perish on that occasion was due to the merit of listening to a single teaching session of the Lotus Sutra. So in our worldly existence as well, disasters arising from the four great elements, are earth, water, fire, and wind, may occur frequently. At such times, relying on the power of truth within Buddhist scriptures and their inconceivable merit, one can also be spared from many disasters. There was such a story in the past. This is also related to this chapter, so I briefly share it with everyone now. Next, we will teach the Lotus Sutra. In chapter 15, it was taught that when Shakyamuni Buddha was in this world, many bodhisattvas emerged from the great earth before him. Before the bodhisattvas emerged, the Buddha said he would manifest parinirvana, and other bodhisattvas said they were willing to uphold the Lotus Sutra. At that time, the Buddha said, "You do not need to. I have many bodhisattvas can propagate the Lotus Sutra." At that time, an extremely large number of bodhisattvas equal to the sands of the Ganges River have emerged. At that time, the Buddha said, "These bodhisattvas were cultivated by me after I aroused the mind of bodhicitta," or in our modern language, they were trained and nurtured by me. At that time, many people felt that this was impossible, since the Buddha had attained realization only a little over 40 years earlier, and yet there were so many bodhisattvas. In such a short span of time, this seemed utterly impossible. It would be like a 25-year-old person saying that a 100-year-old elder was his son, and they mutually acknowledge each other. In reality, this is also impossible. Just when such doubts were arising, the Buddha will answer this question in the following chapter. Actually, I do have so many bodhisattvas are reasonable. They are reasonable. What is the reason? Because of my attainment in the presence of ordinary sentient beings who are to be tamed, what is manifested is this, that the Buddha appeared more than 2,500 years ago in this world as Prince Vesantara or Prince Siddhartha. Such a person appeared, attained realization, and became enlightened. This is what manifests in the presence of ordinary sentient beings to be tamed, but in the presence of extraordinary Mahayana bodhisattvas and Mahayana sentient beings, the Buddha actually attained Buddhahood a very, very long time ago. Our present Shakyamuni Buddha did not attain realization in India. It was merely a manifestation shown before sentient beings. In fact, he attained realization extremely long ago. This span of time is what will mainly be taught today. We should know that the time when the Buddha truly became a Buddha was unimaginably remote. Therefore, we all understand that what appears before us may be 2,500 years, or at that time, some 40+ years of attainment, is merely a display before sentient beings. This point is a very important issue in Mahayana Buddhism, because before different sentient beings, the Buddha expounds Dharma teachings of varying depths. This is something extremely rare among the leaders of other religions. Therefore, as Buddhists, we must understand the profoundly deep reality of Mahayana Buddhism. Otherwise, if we merely follow practitioners of the common vehicle, or simply adopt the views of certain worldly academics, then as Buddhists we would not have truly entered entered the scriptures at all. So this point is extremely critical. Now, regarding today's content, on one hand, it is relatively simple and there is nothing hard point and everyone can follow it literally. But on the other hand, the content is indeed very profound. But for such profundity, each of us may have different Buddhist faculties. Some people have deep faith without doubt and should gain many, many benefits from this. Some people may be half believing and half doubting. Some people may feel this is very marvelous. Why is it like this? They only trusting their own conceptual mind, not trusting the Tathagata's wisdom, or only trusting their own inferential wisdom, not trusting the principle of reality. In this regard, of course, you can completely not believe in, but sometimes can we just rely on our own conceptual mind? Actually, in the entire vast and boundless world, how much do we understand? There is no need to mention the past or the future. Just in our present real life, what percentage of the knowledge about our world today do we actually understand? Those who usually regard themselves as exceptionally wise also sometimes have a strong need to examine themselves inwardly and engage in self-reflection. Now let us briefly introduce the literal meaning to everyone about this chapter. At that time, the Buddha told all the bodhisattvas and the entire great assembly, "Sons of good family, you should believe and understand the Tathagata's truthful words and words of reality, the Tathagata's Vajra words, the Tathagata's words of truth, the Tathagata's honest words. You must have faith in such words." Why does the Buddha speak in this way again and again? As for the principles that follow, not to mention ordinary beings, even many great bodhisattvas here may at times find them difficult to believe. Therefore, on matters of special importance, the Buddha speaks repeatedly. Once again, he tells the great assembly, "You should believe and understand, but what is it that you should believe? The Tathagata's true Vajra words." Again, he tells the great assembly, "You should believe the Tathagata's true words of truth." Here in the scripture, in the Tibetan text, it is also like this, and in the Chinese text, it is also like this. Repeatedly, important matters are spoken 3 times. Nowadays, it does not seem so popular, but perhaps 2 or 3 years ago, it was always said this way. Important things should be said 3 times. I hate you, I hate you, I hate you, like this. There are many, many other important things as well. Once when we went to see the Venerable Master Ben Wan, there was a person in front of me. He said, "I want to get rich." Then Master Ben Wan had something, I forget what it was, to bless him with, like a staff or something. He said, get rich, get very rich." Then it was my turn. I also sought blessings and went forward. He said, "Arouse bodhicitta, arouse bodhicitta, arouse great bodhicitta." This is also an important thing said 3 times. When gurus give blessings, it is also like this. So the Buddha also speaks repeatedly. "You must believe me, listen well to my true words. You must believe my true words. Listen and accept them well." He said this 3 times. At that time, the great assembly of bodhisattvas, led by Maitreya Bodhisattva, because Maitreya Bodhisattva is foremost here, the great assembly of bodhisattvas, led by Maitreya, pressed their palms together and requested of the Buddha, saying, "O Bhagavat, please tell us." Because everyone was full of doubts about this principle, "Please tell us. We will definitely believe and accept the Buddha's true words." They said this 3 times in this way. "O Buddha, please tell us. We will definitely believe and accept your Vajra words. Please tell us. We will definitely receive your Vajra words." They asked 3 times. Actually, this is very important. The ancient great masters also said this. For very important matters, 1 sentence can be repeated twice. In His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche's The Heart Essence, my heart's advice at the beginning, when discussing the wisdom of hearing, then the wisdom of contemplation, and the wisdom of meditation, when it came to the wisdom of meditation, he said it 3 times repeatedly.
Tuba Zamji Jundong Machu Charton Tan La Yichi Nika, Sunja Zumbi Shah Yatro, Samson Shero to keep Chitten, a Jean Gramjum, Mavi Tonchin, Jarankin Materni, Zundum Bandan Chat, Santawan and Joperin, Damton Nyalatenchi, Nyanchok Mama, Yari Chutzer Ramjam, Rangindora Kuni, Tapso them.
Something, something. I forgot the last line.
Rangindora Kuni, Tapso them.
When His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche taught about hearing, contemplating, and meditating, he repeatedly urged everyone to practice. Even if one is a great scholar, proficient in all scriptures and commentaries, if one has not tamed one's own mind stream, it is like a parrot learning to speak. One must definitely tame one's own mind stream. So whether the great masters of the past or very important matters in our worldly existence, you can say them twice or three times. It is all very necessary, including when Dharma teachers expound the teachings. Some scriptural citations can be quoted 2 or 3 times, or some principles can be repeatedly explained to everyone. Afterward, the memory becomes quite deep. In the past, His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok used certain scriptural citations every day. He would use it today and also tomorrow. In this way, some listeners would feel that why was it used in both yesterday and today? Yesterday I mentioned something, and one person said, "You used it at least 3 times." I replied, if I used it at least 3 times, it was when I was teaching the 100-syllable mantra. I told a story about how a police officer practiced the 100-syllable mantra beside His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche. Then a Dharma friend said, "You have told us this story at least 3 times. This shows that this is very important. If even someone of such status practices the 100-syllable mantra, then why would we, who are wearing monastic robes, not practice it? But many people may not think in this way." Wow! Why is there so much repetition in the presence of someone as intelligent as me? Is it necessary to say such things? How unnecessary. They may think this way. Actually, sometimes it is necessary to repeat things again and again. At this time, the Buddha says, "You must remember, you must believe." The disciples say, "We will definitely believe, we will not have doubts," not like us. When something slightly does not accord with our conceptual mind, we often generate various wrong views and wrong thoughts. At this time, the Bhagavat knew that the Bodhisattvas were supplicating again and again, continually supplicating. For this reason, he told them, "You should listen well and carefully. I can proclaim to you the Tathagata's secret transcendent powers." Now when proclaiming, all the devas, humans and asuras in the world all think that the present Shakyamuni Buddha, actually, at that time it was said, at that time he left the palace of the Shakya clan and renounced, then went to the city of Gaya. The city of Gaya, yesterday we mentioned it before, didn't we? He sat at the place of enlightenment not far from the city of Gaya. At that time, he first practiced austerities for 6 years at the Nairanjana river, then went to Bodh Gaya, which is the Vajra seat. He attained enlightenment at the Vajra seat and attained Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. Most people in the world think this way. I have also taught this before, haven't I? White Lotus, an extensive biography of the lives of Buddha Shakyamuni. After studying this, we understand that in his present life, Shakyamuni Buddha appeared to renounce as the prince of King Shuddhadana, then became a Buddha after renunciation. This is what is especially shown in the presence of those of the common vehicle. Actually, in the presence of ordinary sentient beings, there were so many lifetimes spent perfecting the 6 parameters and the 2 accumulations to attain Buddhahood. But this is even more different from the Mahayana perspective. So now many devas are also like this, humans are also like this. You see, many of us today, whether performing dances about Shakyamuni Buddha's story, making movies, or usually some academic researchers say, your Prince Siddhartha, that day a leader in the world, went to India himself, perhaps on a business trip. Then he bought some prayer beads for some of the monks. He said, your Buddhist Siddhartha Sidodo. When he first pronounced it, Siddhartha seemed correct, but later he said Sidodo. He said that prince, the place where he attained realization and awakening, he often speaks in this way. So worldly people think Shakyamuni Buddha was a prince who then became enlightened or practiced austerities for 6 years, very simply. Their understanding of Buddha is like this. There is nothing more. They think in this way. But actually the Buddha told the sons of virtue, my true attainment of Buddhahood was actually very, very long time ago, immeasurable, limitless, hundreds of thousands of myriads of kotis, of nayutas, of kalpas, an extremely, extremely great number of kalpas, very, very long time ago. This can be explained through an analogy. This analogy is relatively difficult for us to believe, difficult to express. For example, suppose 500,000 of myriads of kotis of nayutas of incalculable great manifold cosmoses. Who have studied the Abhidharma Kosha will all know about the great manifold cosmos, an extremely, extremely large number of worlds. 500,000 of myriads of kotis of nayutas of incalculable great manifold cosmoses. These great manifold cosmoses refer to these many worlds. There are extremely, extremely many worlds. Suppose someone were to grind all these worlds into extremely tiny particles. You see the great manifold cosmos entirely made into very tiny particles. If there were this many entire great manifold cosmoses, there would be 100 million particles or 10 billion particles, that many. Then taking these particles toward the east after passing 500,000 of myriads of kotis, of nayutas, of incalculable lands, after arriving at such a distant place, you drop one particle, then you keep walking, continuing toward the east. Finally, all of these particles are completely exhausted. All the particles of this many great manifold cosmoses mentioned earlier, then after passing 500,000 of myriads of kotis of nayutas, of incalculable lands, you drop another particle. You keep walking and drop another particle, drop another particle. In this way, finally, all the particles of all those great 1,000 cosmoses are completely used up. Then, in this way, the Buddha asked the sons of virtue, what do you think? Would there be many such worlds? Of course, extremely many, inconceivable. If we were to calculate completely, we would have no way to imagine it in our minds. Even if we use computers to calculate now, it would be impossible. Electronic calculators cannot do it either. If you type a few numbers into an electronic calculator, it cannot continue. Everyone knows this. At that time, Maitreya Bodhisattva and others requested of the Buddha, O Bhagavat, such worlds are immeasurable and limitless. If we calculate, there is no way to calculate. If we think about it in our minds, there is also no way to reach it. Not only ourselves, he said, all the Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas, if they contemplate with their wisdom free from corruption, they also cannot know its ultimate result. Not only Hinayana practitioners cannot find its limit, we who abide in the stage of non-retrogression. Avaivartika Dhatu is the stage of non-retrogression. We bodhisattvas who have already abided in the stage of non-retrogression, even these bodhisattvas, no matter how they calculate with their wisdom, also do not have any way to find its limit. O Bhagavat, such worlds are truly immeasurable and limitless. At that time, the Buddha told these bodhisattvas, you sons of virtue, today I can very clearly to proclaim and clearly tell you, these worlds, whether they were touched by particles or not touched by particles, all made into particles, one particle representing one kalpa. If we calculate in this way, if we calculate the time since I attained Buddhahood, it has already exceeded even more. What does this mean? As mentioned earlier, all the particles of our entire great manifold cosmos, after passing 500,000 of myriads of kotis of nayutas of incalculable worlds, we drop one, continuing this way. Then here it also says such worlds, whether touched by particles, because after passing 500,000 of myriads of kotis of nayutas of incalculable places, when dropping a particle, this particle has already touched this world. This is one. Some were not touched by particles, and in between, several worlds were completely untouched by particles. Whether touched by particles or not touched by particles, all the entire pure lands and worlds you have traversed, all combined together and all made into particles, that would be extremely, extremely many, each particle counted as one kalpa. If we count one kalpa this way, that is extremely many. Then it is said that since the Buddha became a Buddha, actually hundreds of thousands of myriads of kotis of these kalpas have already passed, having exceeded these kalpas. If this is so, indeed, if we, using ordinary worldly numbers to calculate, there is fundamentally no way, whether it be our conceptual mind, the wisdom of Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas, or the wisdom of these bodhisattvas of the stage of non-retrogression, there is no way to measure it. Then the Buddha said this, saying, since I became a Buddha, I have constantly dwelt in this Saha world teaching and liberating these sentient beings. And also, not only in this Saha world since I became a Buddha, I have always been teaching and transforming all sentient beings, but also in other places in hundreds of thousands of myriads of kotis of nayutas of incalculable lands. I also benefit these sentient beings. So we can all see that the Buddha, over such a long period of time, in so many worlds, if he benefits sentient beings in this way, then those bodhisattvas as numerous as the sands of the Ganges River who emerged from the earth that day are nothing special. Perhaps if we were here at this scene, we would also be able to feel that although the so-called bodhisattvas, as numerous as the sands of the Ganges River, are still extremely many, but actually, compared with this number, they are not that many. So the time since the Tathagata became a Buddha is indeed inconceivable. Not only is the time since the Tathagata became a Buddha, in the combined Suvarnaprabhasa Sutra, there is also such scriptural citation. Not only is the time since the Tathagata became a Buddha extremely long, but moreover, the Tathagata's entire lifespan also cannot be calculated by using the particles of the earth. All the earth can be known by counting particles, but there is no way to calculate the lifespan of the Buddha Shakyamuni. We can using particles to measure the entire earth. But if we use particles or any method to calculate the lifespan of our teacher Shakyamuni Buddha, it is difficult to count or calculate. So for this point, whether from beginningless time or from very long time ago, the Tathagata, by using this way to liberating sentient beings, which is indeed inconceivable, including in the Maharatnakuta Sutra, it also says that the Buddha himself said there was a Tathagata called Indradvaja. At that time, among his assembly, the Buddha said, I have already become this Tathagata. This Tathagata and I are non-dual. Buddha did not answer when many disciples in the assembly asked this question. Later, Manjushri Bodhisattva answered, the Tathagata in immeasurable, limitless worlds actually manifests various bodies, which is completely reasonable. The Maharatnakuta Sutra says, without abandoning the initial arousing of bodhicitta, manifesting here and there in various places, and moreover in future worlds manifesting immeasurable Buddhas. The Buddha, in different occasions, manifested different physical forms in the past. Now, moreover, in future worlds, manifesting immeasurable, limitless physical forms. So what do we mainly want to teach here? Many of us think, how many years ago from now does Shakyamuni Buddha attained realization, turned the wheel of Dharma? 2,500 years. Many people begin to think in this way, but this kind of statement, we can speak this way in the presence of worldly people, of the common vehicle, because they are all very attached to this number. But from the perspective of true Mahayana Buddhism, the time since the Buddha became a Buddha until now, which cannot be calculated in years, many Buddhists do not understand this question fundamentally. It is understandable that worldly people do not understand, but even our Mahayana Buddhists do not know as well. If we think Shakyamuni Buddha was just an ordinary person who listened to a few teachings, then later practiced austerities, and was just a rather capable child, this is a great wrong view if we think in this way. Many of our Buddhists truly carry such wrong views and hold on to them all the time, because they have not studied some Mahayana scriptures nor studied the Vajrayana teachings. In the Vajrayana Tantras, there are even more inconceivable methods of explanation. So indeed our wisdom is limited. Be cautious not to trust your mind. As it says in the Sutra of the Wise and Foolish, or the Sutra of 100 Karmas, be cautious not to trust your mind. Do not trust your consciousness. That is to say, do not trust your own mind. Is it in the Sutra of 42 sections? Fine, you win this time. In the Sutra of the Wise and Foolish, there are also such words, right? If you don't believe me, you can search it online. Just kidding. Don't take out your phones in class. Next, the Buddha told all the sons of virtue. During this interim, the Buddha spoke of Dopamkara Buddha and so forth, and also proclaimed entry into nirvana. Actually, this is a skillful, expedient distinction. That is to say, during the Buddha's entire process of attaining the path, often in Buddhist scriptures, including in scriptures like the Bhadrakalpika Sutra, it says the Buddha received a prediction in the presence of Dopamkara Buddha. He would attain Buddhahood after 91 kalpas, with the Buddha named Shakyamuni Buddha, and so forth. So during this interim, in different scriptures, it is said that the Buddha received a prediction from Dipamkara Buddha, turned the wheel of Dharma in between, and later manifested parinirvana, and so on. There are many, many such statements. Actually, these are not definitive meaning. This is for the convenience of sentient beings that Buddha shows like this. It is not truly that he received a prediction in the presence of Dopamkara Buddha. Although in appearance it is like this, actually this is not very ultimate. The Buddha told the sons of virtue, when sentient beings come before me, at that time Shakyamuni Buddha said, when certain sentient beings approach with the Buddha eye, I observe their faculties, whether they are sharp or dull, and determine whether I can teach the Dharma to them in a suitable way. Upon seeing these sentient beings, the Buddha may reveal matters such as his own name, his lifespan, his teachings, and so forth, and even manifest parinirvana when appropriate. All these will be spoken differently in the presence of different sentient beings. The Buddha has 10 epithets, such as Tathagata, Sugata, and many other epithets. In the presence of sentient beings, what does Buddha manifested in the presence of most sentient beings to be tamed? It is manifested that the Buddha dwelt in the world for 80 years. In some Hinayana scriptures, there is also 79 years, and finally entering parinirvana and so forth. These are manifested in the presence of the common vehicle, different faculties. Actually, this is truly necessary. The Buddha's name is different. The Buddha's statue is different. The Buddha's adornments are different. All of these are perfectly acceptable. Not only the Buddha, sometimes when we go to different places, we also have different names. When I go to some schools, when I go to ordinary worldly schools, sometimes are not very convenient. They ask, can we call you as professor? I say yes, because in the past I have been given some visiting professorships at some schools. We definitely cannot get a real professorship, but if it is a visiting professorship, a nominal professorship, I said, yes, that's fine. So some call me Professor Sodargi, some say teacher, some say Khenpo, some say, can we call you as Rinpoche? It's better not to say Rinpoche, I say. One teacher called my name as Khenpo. He called it Janbu. Janbu Jida Suo. He probably doesn't recognize it very well either. So among these few characters, when introducing me, he kept saying Janbu Jida Suo. So sometimes indeed, for an ordinary worldly person, in the presence of different people, perhaps in the future you will also be like this. In different occasions, in some people's presence, say Khenpo. For Tibetans, Khenpo is better. When going to some monasteries in the Han Chinese regions, they don't understand Khenpo. If you say Dharma Master, that's also acceptable. As long as the name is not too excessive, it's all fine to let them use it. In any case, whether he likes Janbu or whatever, some of our Tibetan names are not easy to use. Buddhists can basically say our names. For non-Buddhists, it is especially strange when they read them. Perhaps they haven't looked at it first. While reading, they forget again, then they look again. When they look, they read it wrong. Such thing will happen. So sometimes I think no need to mention the Buddha, even for our worldly people, when we're using different names, including some of our Dharma friends as well. They will use another name when going to the Han region. They use another name when they're at home. In the presence of some relatives and friends, they use another kind of rather strange name. Nowadays, some children on the internet are all give very strange name to each other, so no one recognizes anyone. Especially the WeChat names, internet names nowadays, and for each person, I don't know. Sometimes this person will call as cat, little dog, pig, and so forth. There are all kinds of various ugly names. Perhaps it is for liberating sentient beings. For example, if I call myself little cat, perhaps many sentient beings who like cats can be liberated by this. It must be this reason. Here it also says, with various skillful means, proclaiming the subtle Dharma, causing these sentient beings to arouse joyful minds. means. Because of the Buddha's name as well as the physical forms he manifests, there are many, many different kinds of manifestations. The Buddha told the sons of virtue. The Tathagata sees that some sentient beings especially delight in lesser teachings. They are unable to accept teachings on emptiness or the Mahayana. Moreover, their merit is extremely shallow and their afflictions are very heavy. In the presence of such people, the Buddha often says, I renounced when I was young and attained a Nuttara Samyak Sambodhi. In the presence of many of us, the Buddha often says, the Buddha renounced at the age of 29, then practiced austerities for 6 years, then taught the Dharma for 45 years, and then entered parinirvana and so forth. For what kind of people does the Buddha manifest in this way? It is for those who delight in lesser teachings and who are attached to worldly matters. Apart from areas like history, politics, law, and the like, they are unable to engage with deeper principles. Moreover, the afflictions in their mind stream are especially heavy. They are unable to accept wholesome or positive teachings, yet they accept unwholesome views or flawed knowledge very easily. In the presence of such people, the Buddha manifests in ways similar to what we often see manifested before us today. In reality, the time since the Buddha attained Buddhahood is extremely long. This has already been explained earlier through various analogies. However, in the presence of sentient beings, the Buddha employs skillful means. In order to liberate sentient beings and prevent them from generating wrong views, and to enable them to enter the Buddha path, he teaches in this way. This is a very important key point in Mahayana Buddhism. Those of us who have studied Vajrayana and studied the profound Mahayana scriptures will all understand. Some who in the past studied only the common vehicle may find today's teaching to be something entirely new. The Buddha told the sons of virtue, all the scriptures taught by the Tathagata are for the liberation of sentient beings. Within these teachings, some speak of his own body and some speak of other bodies. Throughout the Buddhist scriptures as a whole, some passages are the Buddha speaking about his own life story, and some describe his own circumstances. Some the Buddha will speak of others' bodies. For example, how Maitreya Bodhisattva is, or how Amitabha Buddha is. And some manifest his own physical form. For example, in the presence of certain disciples, he manifests various forms. The Buddha personally teaching the Dharma in the sky, for example, some people who, without eyes, after supplicating, the Buddha personally manifests. There are also such cases. Some manifest other physical forms, not the Buddha's own physical form, but using the images of other Buddhas, or the Buddha relies on other manifestations. And for example, the manifestations of Brahmans, Shakra, and such. Then in these scriptures, the Buddha manifests his own activities sometimes, and personally manifesting various 6 paramitas and 4 means of attraction. Some Buddhas manifest the activities of other Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Whatever the Buddha teaches in Buddhist scriptures, all of it consists of truthful words without any falsehood. Why is this said? Because the Tathagata has eliminated all afflictive obscurations and cognitive obscurations, the Tathagata understands the true nature of the 3 realms exactly as they are. The Mahavaipulya Mahasamnipata Sutra says, the Tathagata's wisdom has no boundaries. It is far removed from the 3 marks of conditioned phenomena. The Buddha's wisdom is supreme and extremely profound. All sentient beings cannot know it. The wisdom of the Tathagata is immeasurable and limitless. He fully understands the characteristics of all conditioned phenomena, their arising, abiding, and ceasing. He is far removed from these characteristics. What this means is, in the wisdom, the Buddha has realized that all the ordinary sentient beings find it very difficult to fathom and measure his profound wisdom. So he says, what is it that the Tathagata can fully and accurately know? The characteristics of the 3 realms. What then are the characteristics of the 3 realms? Within the definitive meaning of emptiness, there is neither birth nor death, neither regression nor emergence. Regression refers to cessation. There is neither birth nor death, neither cessation nor emergence. There is neither abiding in the world nor complete extinction. There is neither reality nor falsity, neither self-entity nor other entity. What the Buddha perceives is not like what ordinary beings perceive, the characteristics of the 3 realms. The 3 realms, as seen by ordinary beings, may be like a pit of fire, or the world as experienced by sentient beings driven by attachment, aversion, and delusion, but what the Buddha perceives is not the same as what ordinary beings perceive. It is entirely pure and entirely empty, entirely the wondrous manifestation of the Tathagata Garbha. There is nothing that truly exists. The Tathagata is completely very clear about all these matters. The Tathagata sees clearly without any confusion. Everyone should also be clear about this point, because sentient beings have different faculties, sentient beings have different desires, sentient beings have different behaviors, sentient beings have different various conceptual thoughts. The Tathagata finds ways to enable these sentient beings to plant roots of virtue in their mind streams. So with various causes and conditions, various analogies, various expressions, various methods, proclaiming various teachings. In this way, the Tathagata's activities will not be meaningless. They are extremely real, because the Tathagata is for these sentient beings. Indeed, the Tathagata teaches appropriately. Whether or not we are Dharma teachers, not all of us are necessarily Dharma teachers, yet each of us can become a Dharma teacher. For the people around you, the wisdom of the Tathagata can be conveyed. But when conveying it, you must first clearly understand that the conduct of each sentient being is different. You see, some people's behavior is noble, some behavior is inferior. Anyway, for this point still has quite a difference. Some people's faculties are different. Some have extremely good faculties, some have very poor faculties. Some desires, regarding our desires, some people who love to eat, love to sleep, and love gossip. Some people who love to practice virtue. So generally, if there are 10 people, these 10 people indeed have different faculties. In many other worldly branches of knowledge, there is relatively little discussion of the differences in individual faculties, but we must definitely understand what should we understand. Indeed, each person's faculties are different. Therefore, when you teach or speak to others, it is fundamentally impossible for one teaching to be accepted by 100% of people, but basically what many people like to hear, like to accept, care about. If we start from such facts, it is also beneficial to sentient beings. So we must never use our own conceptual mind, our own preferences as a standard, and insist that all people must accept my views. This is unreasonable. Including some of our administrators or leaders, sometimes they should be able to accept the views of each different sentient being. The afflictions, habitual tendencies, preferences, and behaviors are all vastly different of each sentient beings. So sometimes we must definitely understand the faculties of different sentient beings. This point is extremely important. Why is it that among the great masters of the past, some great masters were especially successful, and moreover, whether accepting disciples or teaching sentient beings or doing anything, they were extremely complete with good beginnings to the endings? What is the reason? Because they skillfully and expediently tame the attitudes of these sentient beings. This is very necessary if we don't understand anything, completely relying on our own imagination. When it doesn't suit our wishes, we immediately reject it and scolding. If in this way, it also won't work indeed. So in the future, we hope that many people in the process of propagating and benefiting sentient beings, and in the process of hearing, contemplating, and meditating, should follow what the greatly compassionate Buddha taught before. Why does the Buddha teach so many analogies, stories, and principles? They cannot be generalized. If generalizing were acceptable, then the Buddha could have just one scripture, one analogy would be sufficient. But actually, it also does not work, including every place. Every place has its own customs. Combining these customs with Buddhist teachings is also very important. I often tell some of our Dharma friends, when they establish centers or propagate the Dharma in the society, you must understand the local situation and local customs first, and the mentality of the local people and what they're currently concerned about. If you go to propagate and benefit sentient beings, it is also very important to do it in this way. Even if you are not propagating and benefiting, but just traveling or just staying there for a period of time, you also know all the customs of this place. I have also mentioned this before. No matter which country His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche went to, including when riding in a car, he would often ask, what is the best food here? What do people care about most? How are the economic conditions times now? How is the political atmosphere? What do the most attractive people look like? What do the least attractive people look like? In all aspects, in many areas, he would directly ask and directly learn about them. Actually, for many people, this is indeed necessary. Otherwise, including some Khenpos and Khenmos, when they go somewhere, it is just like being wrapped up in a bag and does not know anything at all. Some perhaps due to arrogance, some perhaps rather dull or foolish. And going there and saying nothing, then giving them a teaching on the Dharma seat, but no one he knows. Because he has a very closed way of thinking, everyone feels it doesn't accord with our situation here. Is he talking in his sleep or what? It's very difficult to accept. So it is very necessary for us to understand the local situation, including now in the Tibetan regions, Mongolia, Han regions, and Xinjiang. The customs and habits of many ethnic areas are completely different. Sometimes we must follow the local customs and accord with faculties and the faculties of sentient beings. This is extremely necessary. I hope everyone will understand this point. After our extensive study, we may gradually come to understand that in our world, giving the appropriate Dharma teachings according to each person's faculties is very important. The Buddha said, "Since I attained Buddhahood such a long time ago, my lifespan has not decreased. It is immeasurable. And throughout incalculable kalpas, I always abide without passing into extinction." So the Tathagata, as it can be said in the Diamond Sutra, it says, the Tathagata has nowhere to come from and nowhere to go. Therefore he is called Tathagata. As for the Tathagata, he has no coming and no going. From the perspective of definitive meaning, scriptures, actually there will be many teachings in the Lotus Sutra later on, for instance saying that the wondrous Dharma do not have extinction, the Tathagata also do not have extinction, and many such statements. Of course, what is meant here is to say that since the Buddha's attainment such a long time has passed, but only in the presence of sentient beings to be tamed, the Buddha has entered nirvana and the Dharma will become hidden. A certain guru has also passed away, and the guru's teachings have gradually disappeared and so forth. But if this guru does not have any different with the Tathagata, actually this guru has never left you and has not passed away. The guru's teachings never cease or become hidden at any time. So these principles should, if one understands even a little of the profound and wondrous meaning of Mahayana Buddhism, be relatively easy to grasp. The Buddha told the sons of virtue, originally, when I practiced the Bodhisattva path in the causal stage, the lifespan I attained, if we were to add it all up today, it would be impossible to calculate. Because just now, if we calculate the time since attaining Buddhahood, it cannot be measured precisely. Similarly, when the Buddha practiced the Bodhisattva path in the causal stage, if we calculate that lifespan, they are also extremely numerous. If we add several times more to this, it is also very difficult to calculate. The time before the Buddha's attainment is also immeasurable and limitless. The time after the Buddha became a Buddha is also immeasurable and limitless. Yet today here, it can be said there is no passing into extinction. But in the presence of sentient beings, it can be said that I will pass into extinction soon. Because it has mentioned earlier that the Buddha said in the future, because when teaching the Lotus Sutra, he was approaching the time to manifest nirvana. The Tathagata uses skillful means to teach and inspire these sentient beings. Why is this? Because if the Tathagata dwells in the world for a rather long time, sentient beings with shallow merit will not easily plant roots of virtue. These sentient beings are extremely poor and greedy for worldly wonderful desires. They often sink into the deluded net of false thoughts. If they see the Tathagata not passing into extinction, not manifesting nirvana forever, they will give rise to arrogant minds and harbor weary, lazy minds and so forth. They will not give rise to the thought that the Buddha is extremely difficult to meet, nor will they generate reverent thoughts. Therefore, the Tathagata uses skillful means to teach. This is very important. For example, if a guru does not manifest passing away, it is not easy to give rise to the mind of impermanence in the mind stream of these disciples. If there are some disciples with sharper faculties, each time they witness a certain guru manifesting parinirvana, they think, Oh, this shows that the Guru's passing away reveals how strongly we cling to the notion of permanence. Therefore, all phenomena are impermanent. To manifest and express this truth, the Guru manifests parinirvana. But actually his Vajra body is also indestructible and imperishable, and his Vajra wisdom is also unborn and imperishable. One should have this kind of certain understanding. Not only is the Tathagata like this, even when ordinary gurus of the Buddha pass away, it should be like this. So in our Tibetan Buddhism, we often have such situation. I don't know if Han Chinese Buddhism has this. In Tibetan Buddhist biographies as they are being written, when a certain guru, at the end, when he reached a certain age, in order to guide sentient beings with views of permanence, causing them to give rise to the mind of impermanence, he manifested nirvana and merged into the Dharmada too. In many biographies has quite similar stories. Actually, it is also like this. For example, sometimes when I think of certain gurus, the happiest times were studying and practicing the Dharma together with the guru. There was such a beautiful time in the temple hall. Now when I recall it, truly its impermanence, a very deep sigh arises from the bottom of my heart. If there is this kind of impermanence in the guru, it seems even more profound than that felt for parents or many others. Perhaps one develops a deeper sense of impermanence this way, because when a guru manifests passing away, on one hand it feels as if this entire world has become empty, without support or refuge, leaving one feeling alone and pitiful. On the other hand, in my mind, formerly this guru who was like a Vajra body, but in the end, in such a short time, he manifests nirvana, then what can be said of other relatives and friends, mountains and rivers and great earth? What is there to speak of regarding all these? Naturally, a very profound conviction arises. So you see, the Buddha also teaches this way here. If the Tathagata does not manifest nirvana, these sentient beings give rise to a kind of mind of permanence. Monks, you should know that it is difficult to meet Buddhas when they appear in the world. Why is this? Because people with shallow merit, after passing through immeasurable hundreds of thousands of myriads of kalpas, some can see the Buddha while some cannot. For this reason, the Buddha will say, monks, if it were not like this, for so many, many years, some would not see the Tathagata, and they have this mind that it is difficult to obtain. If it were not like this, they also would not have this mind that it is difficult to obtain. Therefore, the Buddha said, monks, the Tathagata is difficult to see. After these sentient beings hear this, they will give rise to a thought that it is difficult to meet Tathagata. In their hearts, they especially have a mind of admiration for the Buddha. Before the Buddha passed away, I had already met him. A certain guru is also like this. Before he passed away, I met him. Many of our Dharma friends now often say that I was fortunate that before His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche passed away, I had already seen him. Some people think, oh, what a pity. When the Guru was alive, I was still very, very young, or I hadn't even come into this world yet. Some say, oh, although I came into this world, at that time my wrong views and wrong knowledge were very severe, and I was in a state of confusion. There was no way. But now meeting the Guru's teachings, I still have very good karmic connection. Some have this kind of experience. So the Tathagata's manifesting nirvana is all very meaningful. Of course, those who understand principles will contemplate all this. For those who don't understand principles, everything is the same. For them there is nothing, such as gold and brass have the same value, and thus they plant roots of virtue. Therefore, although the Tathagata does not truly pass into extinction, he says he will pass into extinction. Actually, he does not pass into extinction, but the Tathagata will speak this way. Here is an analogy. If the Tathagata originally has not passed into extinction but says he will pass into extinction, isn't this speaking falsehood? The Tathagata originally clearly has not passed away. Yet in the presence of sentient beings, if the Tathagata manifests passing away, would this be speaking falsehood? In this way, would the Buddha commit the fault of lying? If some people with wrong views think this way, there is an analogy is used to explain this situation. We will use an analogy to express. The Buddha told the sons of virtue The Dharma of the Tathagata is the same as well. In fact, in order to liberate sentient beings, it is entirely truthful. He provides an analogy. For example, there is a physician of great wisdom who is extremely skilled in curing illness, yet he has several children. This serves as an analogy, whether 10, 20, 30, or even 100. In the Tibetan text, there are 1,000. This physician has many children. Once, due to some circumstances, this physician went outside. He went on an abroad business trip. At this time, nobody can take care of those children, and in the end, they carelessly drank poison. In the end, the poison took effect and they were in great pain, writhing on the ground. In the past, in our Larung Gar, several female monastics went digging wild vegetables, and later they all got poisoned. I went to see them. Some people's mouths were foaming, some were in pain, later they got better, right? This was very, very long ago. At that time there were wild vegetables everywhere in the Larung Gar, but now there aren't any. At this time the father just happened to return home. He knew that these children had already consumed poison. Some of them had already lost consciousness, while some had not lost consciousness. Those children who had not lost consciousness, who had not lost awareness, and they saw their father coming from far away and were very happy and immediately prostrated, saying, "You've come back at just the right time. Due to our ignorance, we consume poison and now we are in terrible pain. Father, you are a physician. Can you grant us life?" The father, seeing these children in such pain, used some medicinal herbs, those medicines with excellent color, scent, aroma, and flavor, all complete, ground them into pills or into very fine powder, sifted them and made them like pills, and then gave them to these children to take. After taking this excellent medicine, their suffering was eliminated and they completely recovered. However, there were some children who just now had not lost awareness, and they saw the pills with excellent color, scent, aroma, and flavor. Some of the bills look very unappetizing, black and especially unappetizing. Some of the bills have good color, scent, aroma, and flavor. The taste is also good. A truly good physician should make the medicine's flavor, color, and even packaging better. Otherwise, at a glance, one doesn't want to take it anymore, and then it becomes somewhat difficult. You see, this medicine's color, scent, aroma, and flavor are all acceptable. After they took it, these children all got better. Then the other children, although they were happy to see their father return, and also hoped their father would cure their illness, but they refused to take the medicine. Why is this? Because the poisonous gas had entered their bodies too severely, and these children, no matter how good the medicine's color, scent, aroma, and flavor, they were unwilling to accept it. Our sentient beings are also like this. Sometimes, no matter how you teach the Dharma to sentient beings, no matter how many principles you explain to them, if they are too deluded, if the poisonous gas has entered especially severely, they won't accept it. It's exactly the same. At this time, this father thought to himself, "My children are truly pitiful. They've already been poisoned, and moreover, their own awareness is now unclear. Yet they still think this way, so they won't take the medicine. I don't know what to do." Later, he thought of a method. He told these children, "I am too old now and probably will die in the future in a very short time. I'm leaving this medicine for you, and you do not need to worry that it cannot cure you. Do not need to worry that you cannot be cured." After saying this father left. The father was very wise. Then he sent someone to tell his own children, saying, "You tell them I've already died." The father clearly had not died, but he pretended to be dead and sent them word. At this time, these children heard that their father had already died. The medicine was left there, and the father had already died. Their hearts were especially sorrowful, especially contemplative. What did they think in their hearts? When our father was alive, he used his compassionate mind to save and protect us, but now he has already left this place. Now we are here alone and pitiful, without support or refuge, without any protector, and now that father has died in this way, what shall we do? In their hearts, this kind of sorrow and despair was especially strong. At this time they awakened. This medicine was also placed over there, and it had this effect on their minds. Then they took this medicine that they had originally been unwilling to accept. They had already accepted it, and after accepting it, the father knew they had taken the medicine, and hearing this news, he also back home. Perhaps they were either upset or overjoyed. In any case, their illness was cured. At this time, the father returned, saying, "Actually, I didn't die. It was only to make you take the medicine. In order to make them take the medicine, it was like this." At this time, the Buddha told the sons of virtue, "What do you think? Would this physician be speaking falsehood? Would he commit the fault of lying?" Actually, he would not. Speaking falsehood truly means I want to deceive him, to harm him. Having this kind of mind is called lying. But if this father had not left, indeed these people would not have taken the medicine, and it was truly for their benefit. And if he spoke this way, these people would not die, and through this method they finally accepted it. So in many situations, including what is mainly taught here, the Buddha said, in the future I will enter nirvana, but actually he will not enter nirvana. However, this nirvana he speaks of in the presence of sentient beings is just like the father saying, "I have already left." But actually he had not left. He was hiding in another country the whole time. It's only for them to take this medicine. If he had not said he was leaving, they would not take the medicine. Similarly, if the Buddha had not manifested passing away, had not manifested nirvana, our sentient beings would never practice the Dharma. We would not give rise to the mind of impermanence. So using this skillful means is acceptable. When he asked at that time, did that physician speak falsehood? No, O Bhagavat, the Buddha is also like this. Since the Buddha became a Buddha for immeasurable, limitless, hundreds of thousands of myriads of kotis, of nayutas, of kalpas, he has been teaching the Dharma is only for benefit of sentient beings, and there is no passing into extinction. But through skillful means, the Buddha will say, I will pass into extinction, and in the future I will manifest passing away. But if he speaks this way, there is no one who can truthfully say that I have the fault of speaking falsehood. There is no one who can reasonably say that the Buddha has spoken falsehood. So in this place, we often speak of definitive and provisional meaning. This is very crucial. I hope that those of you who study more deeply and contemplate this analogy again and again. One thing we should know today is that actually the Buddha has not entered nirvana. This principle may be rather new, but the Buddha speaks this way. So if the Buddha already clearly said, I have manifested nirvana, would this be mistaken? No. Just like the analogy given before, this analogy has extremely profound meaning. Everyone must definitely remember this. Good, we'll stop here for today.
Sonandai tamse thobaya tonne ide jana pase jirgana jirano chubai chupun sonen dra
bandar badna azarda bandar badna azarda bandar badna azarda